Auzubillahiminasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone. Glad to see you all again. This moment, I want to present to you all my final project about conscious thinking. So, here is the overview of my presentation. There is something a little bit about me. So, there is what is nature, conscious thinking, engineering problem, value of the I5, self-evaluation, and a little bit of my understanding about compressible flow. So, about me. Hi again, my name is Sylva Magdia, but people used to call me Ipe. I'm a student here in University of Indonesia, majoring in mechanical engineering. I got accepted here through an extension program, which no longer exists now, from 2023, I think. I got accepted in 2021, by the way. Before, previously, I completed my diploma program at State University of Jakarta with the same major, of course. So I'm a third daughter. I have two older sisters and two younger brothers. I think it's enough about myself. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. Before we continue to our next slide, I wanna apologize to you all if what I present here is not exactly the same as what I wrote in my quiz paper, because actually I forgot to take a photo before I give it to the class representative. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, next, what is nature? Okay, what is nature? Nature encompasses the physical world of the life that inhabits it. It includes various elements and phenomena, ranging from the smallest subatomic particle to the vast expanse of the cosmos. So, in terms of fluid mechanics, before we have to understand fluid mechanics and its role in understanding nature. So fluid mechanics is the branch of physics that study the behavior of fluids, including liquid and gases, and the force acting upon them. This field encompasses a wide range of phenomena, from the flow of water in rivers to the circulation of air in the atmosphere. Fluid mechanics provide the theoretical foundation and analytical tools needed to understand and predict how fluids move and interact with their surroundings. The study of fluid mechanics is essential for explaining various natural processes and it's instrumental in numerous scientific and engineering applications. So, where is fluid mechanics applied in nature? Actually, fluid mechanics applied in all kind of natural things. Here is some example like rivers and streams. Fluid mechanics helps in understanding the flow dynamics of rivers and streams. It is crucial for predicting how water moves, how sediment is transported, and how erosion shapes the landscape. This knowledge is essential for managing fluid risks and designing effective fluid control measures. Ocean. The principle of fluid mechanics are applied to study ocean current and tides and wave dynamics. This process affects global climate pattern, marine ecosystem, and coastal erosion. Understanding ocean circulation is also vital for navigation, fisheries management, and predicting the impact of climate change on sea levels. Groundwater. Fluid mechanics principles are employed to investigate the movement of groundwater through aquifer. This includes understanding how water infiltrates the soil, how it is stored in underground reservoir, and how it flows towards wells or natural springs. This knowledge is critical for water resource management and ensuring a sustainable supply of fresh water. Atmosphere. In meteorology, fluid mechanics is used to analyze atmospheric phenomena such as wind patterns, storm formation, weather system. This understanding is fundamental for accurate weather forecasting, climate modeling, and studying the effect of pollutant in the air. This also help us to study about how plane or aircraft can fly in the sky. So next is why. Why is it important to understand fluid mechanics in nature? So the first one is environmental protection. Understanding fluid mechanics is essential for protecting natural water bodies and atmospheric system from the impact of human activities. For instance, it helps in designing measures to reduce pollution in rivers and lakes and in controlling emissions that affect air quality. So, disaster preparedness. Knowledge of fluid mechanics is crucial for predicting and mitigating the effect of natural disaster involving fluid flow, such as flood, hurricane, and tsunami. Accurate prediction of effective response strategies can save life and minimize damage to property and infrastructure. And the last one is scientific knowledge. Studying fluid mechanics enhance our understanding of natural process, contributing to science, contributing, sorry, contributing to scientific knowledge and discovery. It helps us comprehend the complexities of fluid behavior in different environments in various fields. Sorry, in leading to advancement in various fields, including environmental science, geology, and biology. So, in summary, fluid mechanics is a fundamental field of study that plays a vital role in understanding and managing natural systems. By applying its principle, we can better protect the environment, manage natural resources, prepare for natural disaster, and advance our scientific knowledge of the natural world. Okay, next is engineering problem. I have two engineering problem here. The first one is about compressible flow, and the second one is about external flow. So the compressible flow. The compressible flow problem is an aircraft is flying at a cruising speed of 1050 meters per second at an altitude of 50,000 meters, where the atmospheric pressure is 54.05 kilopascal and the ambient temperature is 255.7 Kelvin. The ambient air is first declarated in a diffuser before it enters the compressor. Approximating both the diffuser and the compressor to be isentropic, determine A. The stagnation pressure at the compressor inlet, and B. The required compressor work per unit mass in the stagnation pressure ratio of the compressor. B. The required compressor work per unit mass if the stagnation pressure ratio of the compressor is 8. So the compressible flow problem is the drag coefficient of a car at the design condition of 1 atm and the temperature of 708 Fahrenheit and a velocity of 60 mil per hour is to be determined experimentally in a large wind tunnel in a full-scale test. The frontal area of the car is 22.26 foot. So if the force acting on the car in the flow direction is measured to be 68 lbf, determine the drag coefficient of this car. So next, let's solve the compressible flow first. So intention. The intention of this problem is A. A stagnation pressure at the compressor inlet. And B, required compressor work per unit mass if stagnation pressure ratio of the compressor is 8. So the initial thinking is written there, and the free body diagram is drawn there too, and the idealization is both diffuser is isentropic and L is ideal gas with constant specific heat at room temperature. So next is instruction. So for the for A, we want to find the stagnation pressure. So before we can find the stagnation pressure, we have to find the stagnation temperature first. So we search the stagnation temperature first. After that, we can find the stagnation of pressure. After that, if we have find the stagnation pressure, we can search the stagnation temperature at the outlet of the compressor. After we find the stagnation temperature at outlet, we can find the work of compressor. So next is external flow problem. So intention of the external flow problem is drag coefficient of the car, and the initial condition is written below. So the idealization is air is steady and incompressible. Cross section of the tunnel is large enough to simulate free flow of the car, because it is not large enough the car can go in there. And the bottom of the tunnel is also moving at the speed of air to approximate actual driving condition. So the instruction is FD here, written here. We just have to enter the initial condition and we have answered. Okay, so the next step is the value of the I5. So by using the I5 concept, I feel that my approach to solve problem has become more structured and comprehensive. So the I5 method breaks down the problem solving process into clear and manageable steps, which has significantly enhanced my understanding and efficiency. So the first step of the I5 is intention. So intention involves understanding the primary goal of the problem. This is where I focus on what the problem is asking me to find or solve by clearly identifying the intention, and so that my effort I directed towards correct objective. This clarity prevents me from getting sidetracked and helps in maintain a clear direction throughout the problem solving process. So the next step, so the second step is initial thinking. Here in initial thinking is where I gather all the given data and relevant information provided in the problem. So this step is crucial as it involves making sense of the available information and to visualize the problem. So in this step, I create a free body diagram or FBD, and particularly helpful as it allows me to represent the problem visually, making it easier to identify force, moment, and other critical factors. This initial analysis set a solid foundation for the subsequent steps. So the next step is idealization. Here, where I make necessary assumptions and simplify the problem to make it more manageable. These involve getting boundaries and determine the scope of the problem. Idealization helps in focusing on the essential aspect of the problem while ignoring insignificant details that could complicate the solution process. So this is where I struggle a lot before I learned the I5 concept, because whenever I want to solve a problem, I just don't know idealization, and the details become more complicated, and I just can't find the answer. But now I know how to solve this problem of mine. So by establishing this boundaries and assumption, I can stay aligned with the original intention and avoid unnecessary complication. So the last step is instruction. So in instruction involve outlining a detailed step-by-step plan for solving the problem. The structured approach ensures that I follow a logical sequence of action, reducing the chance of error and omission. Writing down the instruction also helps in organizing myself and creating a clear roadmap for implementation. The step-by-step guide acts as a blueprint that I can refer to throughout the problem-solving process. Okay, next is self-evaluation. For this self-evaluation, I want to make it more organized using the DI5 concept. First one is intention. So my main goal for this semester is to understand what each topic is about. I think grade is just a number that the teacher or the professor give me, but the real benefit about attending classes is our own understanding. Additionally, I want to make my daily activities more organized so that I can be more productive. So after that, there is initial thinking. I plan to achieve that goal by planning a review every after class ended, to write the topic of discussion so that I can understand better. I also start using Notion to organize and tracking all of my tasks, assignment notes, and etc. After that, there is an idealization. Ideally, by the end of term, I have a solid grasp of the topic of the classes that I attend, and sometimes I forgot to update my Notion or my notes, so I didn't update it. And the last one is instruction. Unfortunately, for some of the classes, just grasp the basic or the bare minimum understanding about the topic. There are many reasons for it, such as the distraction that disrupt me every time I want to review the topic, such as the surrounding. Like in near my home, there are recitation and Marawis held right next to my house. I don't think that's a bad thing, but every time they play the Marawis, they use a sound system loud enough for the whole in my room to start shaking, and they just start around 8 or half 9 at night, and they just stop when the time reaches like 11, sometimes 11 past 30. Like, I think that's quite disturbing. When I want to study and they're just making noise loud enough, I just can't keep my concentration. Moreover, they do it like twice a month, so it makes me not want to do anything every time they start playing. But after all, although there was that case, like, I reflect that the most influential thing that makes me not doing my initial intention at the start of the semester, is that my mind, heart, and consciousness still not on the same page. Like, and also I always kind of forgot to thank God first and ask God to guide my heart, mind, and consciousness so that I can be more conscious. Like, I know I have to do something, but sometimes I just like didn't want to do anything, and yeah, I didn't do anything. But despite the negativeness, I still kind of think that I has an improvement right now thanks to the chance that Mr. Dai gave us. I start feel a little bit confident to speak in front of the camera, although I did not attach my face in my video, but at least I record my voice. But at least I do always make and upload the videos, although there are videos that I take down to re-upload because I wanted to have a sample problem. But I do now. I think I enjoy making videos. But actually, there are times that I didn't upload videos due to the circumstance that I got sick and hospitalized, and I can't upload video for about 2 weeks. So when I upload next video, I still find it like I didn't make third week videos and fourth, but when I upload the fifth, I write in the description it's second week. Okay, I think I didn't want to make the self-evaluation more longer, so let's go to the next slide. So the next slide is compressible flow. What is compressible flow? Compressible flow refers to the branch of fluid mechanics that deals with fluid in which the fluid density varies significantly in response to change in pressure. This type of flow, characterized by significant change in fluid density, which can occur when the Mach number, or the ratio of the speed of the flow to the speed of sound, exceeds 0.3. Mach number. It is a dimensionless number that compares the flow velocity with the speed of sound in the surrounding medium. It is calculated as the ratio of the flow velocity to the speed of sound. For compressible flow, the Mach number is greater than 0.3. So density variation. Compressible flow involves significant change. Compressible, I'm sorry. Compressible flow involves significant change in fluid density in response to change in pressure. This is in contrast to incompressible flow where the density remains constant. Shock wave. It can produce shock wave, which are regions of the high pressure and density that form when a flow is accelerated or decelerated rapidly. The shock wave can significantly affect the flow behavior and the force acting of the fluid. Viscosity and boundary layers. So compressible flow involves viscous effect, which leads to the formation of boundary layers on solid surface. These boundary layers can significantly affect the flow behavior and the force acting on the fluid. Okay, next, basic compressible flow equation. There are three basic equations for compressible flow. The first one is conservation of mass. The equation is the rho divided by dt plus rho open brackets nabla point v plus brackets equal to 0, where rho is density, v is velocity, and nabla is gradient operator. So the next equation is conservation of momentum. The equation is rho times 2v divided by t equal to minus nabla p plus mu times nabla square times v, where p is pressure, mu is dynamic velocity, and nabla square is Laplacian operator. So the last equation is equation of state. The equation is P equal to rho r times r times t, where r is gas constant and t is temperature. The temperature one is using a big T, and for small t used for times. So that's all about the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, you can just write it down in the comment below. Okay, thank you, bye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.